The world reveals itself to those who travel on foot, said Werner Herzog, and to those who are observant. I'm observant. I like to hike, and I like to play games about hiking and observing. The folks at Brickhouse Games have sent me a copy of their game Northwest. According to the introductory paragraph in their Kickstarter campaign of November 2024, embark on an enchanting journey through the lush forests of the Pacific Northwest in this cube placement game for 2 to 4 players. But in the game of Northwest, it's more about observation than the hike itself. You are hoping to gather data in the form of these handsome little cubes here as you go on this journey and enter these observations into your logbook, which is represented by this little player board right here. Let's just have a closer look at the components. When you first open the box, you'll see this handsome wooden board here that has the 64 little depressions in it. So right off the bat, it's setting the tone for the game with this wood component here on the top of the box. In this generous drawstring bag here, we find 64 little cubes. Yes, they're beautiful. And each of these cubes has a design on it. There are mushrooms, ferns, maple leaves, bees, and Sasquatch. They refer to it as Bigfoot, because after all, it is the Great Northwest. In addition, we have 4 of these player boards called the journals, and that 4x4 array there where you'll place these cubes as you play the game. Overall, the ambiance is set by the color choices and the textures in here, and as a hiker, I really get it. It's well done. When you start out the game, you put these 64 cubes on this board in all the little depressions, like so. Voila. Thank you, Brickhouse Games, for that board with the depressions in it. It would be a pain to just set these up on a printed board, so that was a very nice touch. We also have these little coins here. These are pine cone coins. They come in later in the game. And then there's your little hiker token here, which is the piece that is moved by all the players during the game. Everybody moves the same piece. Each player will take one of these journals, one of these player boards. Each player also gets one of these little reference cards. We found that the reference card was pretty essential when you're first starting to learn the game, and maybe for a few plays thereafter, because there are some things to keep track of. Now, according to the instruction book, the first player is a player who most recently had been on a hike in the woods. That's a nice touch, but if you've got a tie because 2 of your players went on the same hike, or you just want to use a different method, you can do a rock, paper, scissors if you want. There doesn't appear to be any first player advantage, so it really doesn't matter who goes first. Everybody will get to take the same number of turns throughout the game. Now that first player takes this little hiker token and chooses off the board here any of the mushroom cubes, any one of the mushroom cubes. And that kind of depends on where you want to start the game on here. The more you play, the more you realize what's strategic, and you can kind of scan the board maybe and get some idea where you want to start. I'm just going to grab a mushroom here out of near the center, and the hiker goes into that spot. Now this little mushroom goes on my player board, and you first start out where the star is in the corner here and place your mushroom. 2 observations at this point. You always start your first cube in that upper left corner where the star is. And then any subsequent cubes that you place on the board have to be orthogonally adjacent to the first cube. And the other thing to do when you grab those cubes is look closely in the corner of the cube, and you may see a little pine cone symbol. That's valuable because when you place that cube onto your journal, you'll want to take one of these coins so that you have a pine cone coin. And I'll explain the value later on. It does become very valuable as you play the game. So be sure to keep your cubes the same side up as when you select it. So when that pine cone symbol is there, that you won't forget to take one of those coins. Now the hiker token always goes where the most recently claimed cube was sitting. And that's very important because the cube that was taken from the array is going to determine the movement that the next player can execute on their turn. Now if you have a look at your little reference card here where it says movement, it explains pretty well how the movement works for each one of these cubes. So in this particular case, the hiker is replacing a mushroom. And so the mushroom can move one space in any direction, orthogonal and diagonal. Just take your pick which way you want to go. So that second player has a choice of all these different surrounding symbols to claim and put on their board. Now as the game goes on, you'll begin to get a lot of gaps on the board. Let me just move a few things around here so that you sort of see what happens later in the game. So now I'm in a situation here where the hiker is off to the one side. My opponent just took a B. The B means that I have to do a knight's move. Right now, if I do a knight's move, there's nothing for me to get. They're too far away. It comes to a blank space. That's where these little pine cones come in. I spend one of these pine cones or more, and for each one that I spend, I get to move the hiker one extra space orthogonally. And so in this case, I still make the B move, like so, but now I've spent that coin, I can go one extra space orthogonally, which gets me this fern. Now there may be cases where even the pine cone coins don't help you. You don't have enough to get to another place, or you're trapped in a corner somewhere, so you're really limited as to where you can go. The last resort is you can always just grab a mushroom anywhere on the board and move the hiker there. So that kind of mitigates that isolation problem sometimes that can occur on the board here. It seemed to be more often with multiple players, but it works just fine. And then that next player is going to get a fair selection of movement that they can make. So you want to be careful about what you choose to watch what items they're collecting. I should point out that in the rulebook they call them momentos, but basically they're cubes. Oh, and if you can make a legal move, you must make a legal move, even if it might not necessarily be desirable. Now play continues like this around and around the table with people moving the hiker around and grabbing cubes and putting them on their journal. Now here's where the puzzly aspect of this all happens, is in the scoring round. And so you want to study the scoring before you even start the game so that you understand the value of these different pieces before you even start moving and taking cubes. Recording mementos in your journal is in the vernacular of the game, but it's placing cubes on your player board. Now they give you this real handy little score pad here that sort of helps you keep track as you are doing the scoring, and so you don't miss anything. This, in conjunction with the reference card, makes the scoring pretty easy and quick at the end of the game. So not only are you scoping the position of all these cubes here to choose what to put on your player board, you also want to look at what the opponent is up to over there so that you can maybe make a move that gives them a move that won't do them much good. Doesn't always work out that way, but it's something to keep in mind. With two players, it's pretty straightforward because you know exactly what they're going to move, and I know that they're going to try to, get me moved into a corner or whatever. With 3 or 4 players, it's a little more difficult because a lot can go on around the table before it gets back to you, so you have less control over what's going to be available when it gets back around to your turn. Anyway, I played with 2, I've played with 3. We didn't play with 4, but I can extrapolate that. That would be, again, a different game than the 2-player, but every bit as fun. Oh, and one more real important thing at the end of the game when the scoring's going on is that if you have any of these pine cone hoops left over, those are a point apiece as well. So yes, you want to spend those in order to increase your movement possibilities, but you might want to decide, no, I'm just going to hang on to this because we're close to the end of the game or something like that, and you know that this point's going to score, and the available cubes might not be the best choice for scoring. Now, overall, this is a very high quality game. I was very pleased with it. Everything about the manufacture. I really like the wood and the tone of it. Very hefty pieces. People who play several times get into the rhythm, and you learn what to look out for as you play, and so you'll get better at it. If you're playing with somebody who's never played before, you might want to be a little bit more lenient with making some harsh decisions here to draw them into the game until they get used to how it works. I have just a couple of critical comments, I guess. The printing on the dice is a little light. It'd be nice if it was darker. I'm not sure what process they used, if it's silk screened, but it could have been a little bit more intense, I guess, easier to see. I can imagine playing it at a picnic table at a camp out with a flashlight, and it's going to be a little bit harder to see, especially those little pine cone symbols on the dice. The rule book could definitely use a rework, a little upgrade. It would be nice to have some more colorful diagrams to sort of illustrate some of the moves and some of the circumstances during the game. What's in here is functional, but it is only functional. I think it could be spruced up a bit. And there was a couple of times we had to try to look something up and it was sort of hidden in a paragraph. But as I say, it's very functional and we learned to play the game without any problem. You may want to toss a pencil in the box so that next time you play it's already there, because you're going to want to keep score on that little pad. And just one more request from a friend. He would like to have a purple player board. And so in conclusion, that's Northwest from Brickhouse Games. I think this is really a front shelf game for me. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play with the family and friends. So it's going to be a prominent one on my shelf. So thanks again to the folks at Brickhouse. I'll add this to my backpack next time I'm in the woods, which will be just a couple weeks from now, actually. Because even in the woods, you can be sure to play every day.